Hello, I'm Dylan.
And I'm Keon.
This is Trash the Doctor, that podcast where we blackmail everyone. Because this week we watched Children of Earth Day 4.
Written by John Fay.
Directed by Euros Lin.
And it aired on July 9th, 2009.
Well, I'm just gonna out us right off the bat. So last week on day 3, at the end of the episode, we got an email. And Keon said, I've been spoiled about something that happens this season, and I think Dylan's been spoiled about it too. And as soon as the recording ended, we talked about it, and we were both spoiled that Ianto dies this season. Then Keon made a tweet about it, just outing us to everybody who follows us on Twitter. But I'm just going to start this episode by saying, you know what? We were both spoiled that Ianto was going to die this season. Perhaps not necessarily that we knew he was going to die in this episode, but I just want to get it out there so that people know that we knew it was coming.
Right. I don't remember when I was spoiled. I think it was between day 1 and day 2.
I remember when I was spoiled, and it was actually like as we were sitting down to record our episode on day 1, and I was reading the Wikipedia page, and just like the third paragraph in the introduction just randomly says like this season is notable for killing off Ianto Jones, basically, and I'm like, wow, thanks. And then I remember telling Keon, like, yeah, if you read the like synopsis on Wikipedia, the little intro paragraphs, like just don't read the last sentence of the third paragraph because it just like spoils something big. And so
yeah, I mean, that kind of prompted me. We were discussing this online, but why not just reiterate it here because it's actually really funny. The TARDIS wiki page for Ianto is like extremely brutal towards him. I'll just read it right now. I have it pulled up. Ianto, and it also spoils that he dies very heavily or hints at it. So here it is. Ianto Jones, 19 August 1983 to 2009, was an ex-member of the ill-fated Torchwood 1 and a member of Torchwood 3, initially serving as more of a support man or T-boy, but later taking a more active role, yada, yada, yada. Where was it? There was something else that was funny in here. Right. His attempts to shroud his past impacted the team in a bad way. So, I mean, I don't know. It's very brutal and unforgiving towards him.
It's also really long. Wow. I'm looking at it right now.
Oh, what, the page in general?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's massive. I mean, just because of the audios, I guess.
Afterlife. 6 months after Ianto's death, Jack visited the House of the Dead in Wales in an attempt to see Ianto's spirit. Ianto had been recreated by an ancient being within the rift, along with many other spirits, such as his father, in an attempt to convince Jack to free it. Wow. Weird.
Yeah, well, he was a super popular character, so I'm not surprised that they brought him back in some capacity. I mean, apparently, there were petitions and... Well, first of all, I guess there was massive fan outcry about his death, and then afterwards there were even petitions to bring him back or to undo his death somehow.
Too bad the Resurrection Gauntlet is gone. Mm-hmm. Both of them.
Yeah.
Blown to smithereens. If I... if I didn't know, because there isn't like a shrine to Ianto in Cardiff Bay now. Cardiff Key, Mermaid Key. If I didn't know Ianto was dead, I would have had it spoiled for me by John Barrowman's Twitter, because last week, when we were recording this on January 16th, last week, he sent out a tweet that was like, just paying my respects to Ianto, and it was a picture of him, like present day him, taken like in the past month, standing at the Ianto shrine at Mermaid Key in Cardiff Bay, and I was like, wow, good thing I already know why that exists.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I didn't know that there was a shrine to him.
Yeah, it's just a feature of Mermaid Key apparently now. The TARDIS wiki page mentions it at the beginning of the page on day 4. It says proof of their resistance to the death. Their resistance, meaning the fans' resistance to Ianto's death, was soon evidenced in Cardiff Bay, where a shrine to Ianto was erected by fans almost immediately after the 2009 transmission. The shrine persisted for several years and was, as of 2012, simply a feature of Mermaid Key in Cardiff. Eventually, the shrine was elevated to a permanent attraction in Wales.
Huh. That's really odd to me. I really don't get fan outcry or just, stuff like that when characters die or whatever. Yeah, I just...
And also, we'll probably talk about this when we get to the end, but I just don't understand like why Ianto of all people is the one that people are like up in arms about. Because really, he was kind of a nothing character. That's going to be a hot take, and I guess we'll talk about it when we do our retrospective at the end of the episode. But like,
yeah, I wouldn't say he's a nothing character. I think I wouldn't go that far, but I'm definitely more on board with your interpretation of the character than probably most people's. He was just kind of there for a lot of it. But well, yeah, we'll talk about it, I guess.
We'll get there. Yeah, we'll get there. All right, so we open pretty much right where we left off on day 3. But we're in the flashback in 1965. Jack's talking to someone in the government, presumably someone who has Frobisher's position in 1965. Basically, they're saying the 456 want 12 children and the Indonesian flu. They're basically saying that they can give us a cure for the Indonesian flu, which is projected to kill 25 million people.
Right, in exchange for the 12 children. So
Right.
That's what the scene was that we saw at the beginning of day 1. It was Jack leading the children into the light to the 456 and sacrificing them. We also get an origin story for Clement's like verbal tick thing where he goes, isn't it? And he looks over his shoulder, which it actually was started by him talking to Jack as a kid. He looks over his shoulder in this scene and says, isn't it? And that's...
Yeah, because he says it's something evil, isn't it?
Yeah, and that sort of haunted him, I guess. He has that line later that was like, that almost made me double take and double check if this wasn't a PJ Hammond story, where he goes, you've been in every nightmare I've had for my entire life. I was like, oh, that's sort of a PJ Hammond-esque bit of information there.
I mean, sure, if you know what PJ Hammond likes to do, then sure.
Just the word combination, every nightmare. It's like, it's two things that seem kind of PJ Hammond. Okay, whatever. We don't need to go into that. Check out Inevitable, a classic sci-fi podcast. We spent, what was it, 6 weeks on Sapphire and Steel? 7 weeks? However long that was.
Yeah, 6.
Yeah.
We didn't do a bonus episode on that.
I'm just flashing back to that time period.
Things were simpler. Sapphire and Steel was recorded right when quarantine started. Fun fact.
Yeah, that was also...
Speaking of the flu.
Yeah. This episode kind of hit home in many ways, you know, when it introduced that it was about a virus, and then the thing with them unleashing the virus at the end.
Really glad I wasn't the only one who noticed that.
Also, the massive amounts of government corruption. The
massive amount of government, we'll just kill 10% of the kids to save everybody else kind of thing, like the mathematics of human lives.
Yeah, and also the direct reference to asylum seekers being turned away. Yeah.
This episode's weird to watch in 2020, 2021. So Clement says, Clement just grabs Gwen's gun out of her holster and shoots Jack. And everyone's like, whoa, all right, buddy, just like hold up there, all right, just like give us the gun. Let's just take a deep breath. Let's just chill for a hot second here. And he's like, no.
They do manage to calm him down, though, and, within a couple minutes, everyone just kind of forgives him for this, I guess because he just shot Jack, and they all know that Jack is coming back.
Yeah, imagine if he shot Ianto, and that was like... That was how he died, was Clement just gunned him down at the beginning of the episode.
Well, then I might understand the fan outcry, because to have him, even if he was the least interesting Torchwood character, yeah, I just went there. Even if that was the case, like, to have him just die in that manner. Yeah.
It would really underscore the unpredictability of life.
True. Would also introduce like a really weird, because Ianto's death was wrapped into the whole 456 plot line, but to just have it be just this outlier thing that just happens on a whim. I'll never forget reading the Rift War saga, which is like a massive fantasy book series, and one of the characters in that series, who's kind of a main character in one of the books, just falls off his horse. They're riding horses to like go to some battle, and he just falls off the horse and dies, and that's his death.
If I ever like get books published, I'm just gonna kill off one of my main characters in that manner. Not that specifically, but just some really like out of left field, random, unpredictable manner. They're crossing the street and they just get run over by a bus or something.
It's completely unrelated to the main plot.
I could do like what Psycho does, and then just like kill the main character halfway through, and then this whole second half is like a completely different movie than the first half. This is like, I guess that's a spoiler for Psycho, a movie that's 50 years old now at least. But yeah, like the main character, she gets killed like halfway through the movie, and the whole second half of the movie is not even like about her at all.
Yeah, well, was she really the main character in hindsight then? Makes you wonder.
Kind of, because it's like, the second half is about her sister and her fiance looking for her. So she's still an influence on the story.
Yeah, cool.
I guess you could argue that she's not the protagonist, but she is the main character. Because I would draw a distinction between those two labels.
Yeah, I mean, I have no idea. I'm sure much more has been said and like written on that.
This is your field, Keon. You should be an expert on this. You're telling me you're not an expert?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Damn. Why did I ever hire you to be on this podcast?
Wait. Oh, damn. Okay.
Implying one, that I pay you, 2, that I created this podcast solely, and 3, that I knew you were going to get an English degree when we started this podcast.
Wait, we're getting paid?
You're not getting paid? You might want to take that up with HR.
That's one of my multiple jobs, is like a volunteer basis thing, and like that's the joke in the Slack, is like, wait, we're getting paid for this? Okay.
Slack.
Can't believe I just brought workplace humor, the least funny style of humor known to humanity, into the podcast. We can just move on from that as fast as possible right now.
No, maybe we should just linger for a little bit, water cooler humor.
God.
Anyway, so Jack comes back to life, and Clement's like, what the hell? He basically says like, isn't that weird? The man who doomed us to die can't die himself. Which is true. I did have a note here that was like, you didn't have your holster strap on? Really? WTF, Gwen? Because normally, basically any law enforcement officer who has a holster for a gun has a strap, or a, what would be the word? Like a securing device that goes over the top of the gun that prevents you from pulling the gun out of the holster. And I was like, really, Gwen? You're not practicing good gun safety there, Gwen. Like, this is kind of your fault.
Exactly. Which is why Clement is completely absolved. And
he's not completely absolved.
Yes, he
I also
is.
say kind of her fault, not entirely.
He is. absolved.
You heard it here first, folks. Keon is just handing out absolution. Can I be absolved next?
Yeah,
So,
okay, so before we move on from this scene, let's just talk something formal. So, formal is in like the form and the of the episode, not like formality, but like there's a lot of shaky cam in this beginning sequence, and it kind of reminded me how much shaky cam sucks when you're not doing long takes. Like, yeah, I don't know. That's just something I've always thought is that shaky cam is like okay in long takes, but if you have like a lot of cuts like this scene did, then what are you doing?
yeah, I kind of agree with you. I think shaky cam is generally used to give something a like home videographer like handheld feel. And if you've got a lot of cuts, that just runs like that's antithetical to the handheld feel that the shaky cam is going
Right.
for generally. I mean, you don't always use shaky cam to make a handheld feel, but in general you are.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think I agree with you.
It either like dissipates later in the episode, or I just stopped noticing it because I really noticed it in this first sequence, but then I kind of didn't later on. So I think it just stopped.
Devastating. You may have just become acclimated to it.
Yeah, maybe.
You just become so acclimated to shaky cam, you look out the window and the whole world is like shaking. Because your like brain compensated for the shaky cam by like shaking everything in the opposite direction.
You're like getting motion sickness for things that don't move. Man, what if you could like feel the planet hurtling through space and rotating?
Oh, you mean like the Ninth Doctor said he could in what was it, The End of the World?
Oh, really? I don't remember that.
I think like on his first trip to the future with Rose, he says something like, "I can feel the world hurtling through the solar system under my feet" or something. The training your brain to shaky cam thing reminds me of the story I saw a little while ago about this guy who like basically built a bicycle that inverted the handlebars. So if you turned them left, the wheel would turn right. And then he like taught himself how to ride it, and he got really good at riding it, like as good as people get like riding regular bikes. And then like he got on a regular bike and just like couldn't ride it at all anymore because he was so used to like turning his hands the opposite way to turn.
Right.
I found that really interesting because it was just a kind of like a study in how you can reprogram your brain to do things different ways.
Should have just given the bike to someone else without telling them about it and just like watched as they just crashed.
You should honestly just keep that bike. No one's gonna steal that bike, and anyone who tries to is gonna immediately like face plant.
No, people don't ride bikes when they steal them. They mostly just take them apart. So I don't think anyone's like riding on off the scene of a bike theft on the bike. Maybe they are. I don't know.
Bike theft auto. No, wait, grand theft bike.
Yeah. Anyway, Yonto gets kind of upset with Jack. He's not really mad. He's more just disturbed, I guess.
He's a little upset that Jack didn't want to tell him about 1965. And Jack's like, well, like, what would it have done if I had told you, like, before this whole 456 thing started? Because it was gone. It was in the past. It had happened, and we moved on. It didn't seem like it was going to come back. Yeah, I mean, famous last words, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I was just to say, he also, before we move too far away from the scene, he also then tells Ianto that he's got a daughter named Alice and a grandson, both of whom have been taken by Johnson, and Frobisher is using them as leverage.
Yeah, and that's how we actually cut to the next scene, which is Alice and whatever Jack's grandson's name is. I think it was Steven.
Steven, yeah. Steven.
We cut to them. I didn't think we would get any more of them, but we do. We get them being put in like a little holding cell, and Alice tells Johnson like, "God help you if you crossed Jack" or something like that.
Oh, I wrote it down because I thought it was, hashtag remember when we did quotes. I wrote it down because I thought it was a fun little exchange. She says, "If you've angered him, God help you." To which Johnson replies, "From a woman who spent her life running away from him." And then Alice replies, "Why do you think I did that?" Like,
yeah.
So
Clement is wondering why or what process like Jack and anyone else involved went through to choose the 12 kids from 1965. And Jack just walks in and he's like, "Well, it's because you wouldn't be missed." Just rubbing a little salt in that wound.
Seems like that would be the obvious thing to do, I guess.
It's basically, in hindsight, it's basically a less severe version of what that one woman in the meeting says later on. It's pretty much almost exactly what Jack did.
Yeah, but we like Jack.
Yeah, exactly. We yeah, that's the thing too, is like that's something you can always kind of think about when you're watching shows or movies or any type of story, even reading books or whatever, is like your experience with the character colors your perception of them so much. So like so we learn that Jack did this, and we get why he hit it, and we get why he kind of did it. And then we see the woman later on who is very vehement about sacrificing the kids, and like your response, I guess probably the typical response to her is like, "Well, what the hell? She's obviously like a terrible person." But maybe if we had explored her characters as much as we got to know Jack, we wouldn't be thinking the same thing.
Yeah, I think it's a form of the halo effect, which basically just is like people we like, we're gonna give more leeway to, and we're more likely to look past small transgressions they make, whereas people we don't like, we're less likely to do that. It's an actual documented psychological thing. I think most studies into it revolve, though, around like physical attractiveness. So you're more likely to like overlook things that people you think are attractive or are attracted to do, rather than people you're not.
Yeah, I mean that's just like common sense, pretty much. I don't know what to say.
But yeah, I mean, I'm just saying that, like, yeah, in this episode later on when
we should probably look up her name. She's actually important, so we should know what her name is.
She's like tangentially important, but fine.
It's Denise Riley.
Denise is like, yeah, let's just sacrifice them kiddos. Everyone's like, yo. We'll get there. The 456 ask John Frobisher basically to come inside the tank. Yeah. Well, not him specifically. Well, they ask him, but they send someone else.
Yeah, this was kind of funny to me. They ask, yeah, it's exactly that. They ask Frobisher, and he's like, "Well, I'm not going in there." So they get some guy in the corner to go in.
While he's in there, they learn that there are 3 distinct life forms in there, and we discover the kids from 1965, or 1 or 2 of them.
Yeah, what remains of them. Apparently they haven't been hurt, according to the 456, but they just kind of look... just... I don't even know how to describe it. Just...
I was going to say, maybe not physically hurt, but they've got that 1,000-yard stare going on.
Yeah. Now, when they said the 3 heartbeats thing, I was like, oh my god, is this going to be like the Time Lords or something? Like, is this going to be some sort of offshoot, or like, Time Lords from way in the past, even though that's implied to just be humans, or way in the future who have like morphed and kind of evolved into the 456? But no.
Yeah, no, it turns out it's just they're just detecting the heartbeat of the kids, right, in addition to the heartbeat of the 456 specimen.
Yeah. What the other being in there, I guess the 456 starts spewing its I don't even it's slime everywhere.
It's slime. It's Nickelodeon slime. That's a reference that like probably most of our audience won't get because I think most of our audience is from the UK and Australia, and I'm not sure if they got like the Nickelodeon slime over there.
Yeah, it's
Guess I'm gonna Google
it's
it.
also a very like time constraintive, I don't even know if that's a word, like thing to know about, like you have to be born within a very specific time frame to know about the green slime from Nickelodeon.
You were probably looking for the word restricted, but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know if Nickelodeon was ever like became an international thing outside of the US. Okay, basically the Nickelodeon channel used to have this thing where they would slime people and they would dump green slime on them. They used to do it to like minor D-list teenage celebrities.
Yeah. The kids who couldn't get
Mostly.
on the kids who couldn't get on Disney Channel, and that's saying something.
Look, Nickelodeon gave us SpongeBob, so
Yeah, no, Nickelodeon is massive. I mean, I don't know. Nickelodeon is like really weird in that like they have this weird reputation, but they're actually like a massive media conglomerate or company or whatever.
yeah. They also used to have the best show, Guts.
Never heard of that.
You never watched Guts?
Nope.
Guts was a TV show that was like, I guess Nickelodeon Guts was like was this hilarious. It was like a competition TV show where kids had to compete in like extreme action sports kind of things, kind of like Wipeout but for kids. And if I remember correctly, yeah, okay. I was just looking to double check. At the very end, the final challenge is basically they've got a giant like fabricated mountain of like steel and and stuff and steel and like garbage in the studio. And the final challenge is to race up. It was the aggro crag.
Oh god! Why does that
race
sound
up it,
like,
and the first to the top wins?
Why does that sound like the most intimidating name?
Because it is. Oh yeah, and if you won, you got this awesome like glow in the dark trophy. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, you get you climb up a mountain of sharp metal. You get a goddamn glow in the dark sticker.
No trophy.
Okay, I'm hyperbolizing here, but it's just like the prize doesn't seem worth anything.
Okay, look. I assume that the mountain is not made of like sharp metal. I assume that it's got like that it's been polished off. There are also sections of the mountain that like are like very Fall Guys-esque. I can't believe I just said that. Where like they'll drop like foam boulders on you and look. Guts was awesome. Okay, Guts was awesome.
I just Google imaged the aggro crag and like yeah, dang.
It's awesome, right?
Also, the trophy looks like the dinkiest, like, it's just like a hunk of plastic, like, early 90s style, like, prize,
It's a show from 92. It ran from 92 to 95, and they reran it for years after.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Nickelodeon was sort of that. They had a lot of reruns. They played Children of the Stones, I believe. Check out Inevitable Classic Sci-Fi Podcast. We watched that. They played all those weird British kids shows that no other channel was willing to show in the US. So yeah, I don't know how that relates to the aggro crag, but
because the aggro crag relates to all hail the aggro crag. There was another awesome show that was kind of like Guts, but wasn't Guts, where you basically had to race through this like Mesoamerican themed.
Yeah, Legend of the Hidden Temple or whatever it was called.
That was it. Thank you. Yeah, Legend of the Hidden Temple. That one was also pretty great.
Yeah, I've watched that one like twice, I think.
That one always had a giant talking head that always freaked me out, because it was animatronic, and I was like, it's a little weird.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this one when we watched. I don't even remember the episode name, but it was the one with the malice, the one where they went. It was like a Fifth Doctor episode. It wasn't Enlightenment. It was. I want to call it Enlightenment, but it wasn't. Enlightenment was the one with the boat race, the spaceship race. Man, what was that episode called? I can't even remember now. Well, whatever.
The Awakening.
Yes, The Awakening. That was it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because the picture of the Malice on the TARDIS wiki looks like the head from the Legend of the Hidden Temple. Well, that was a whole tangent. I don't even remember anything about The Awakening. I'm just looking at the picture for the page, and I'm like, I don't remember any of this.
Yeah, that's one of the, handful of Doctor Who episodes that I've just, excised from my memory completely.
That was the one where the horse destroyed the gate, and it was like a whole animal rights thing. Do you remember that?
That's not sparking, the faintest thing in my mind.
How about if I just read this paragraph? Unusually, this serial had a certain measure of infamy in Britain for one of its outtakes from Part 2, in which a horse-drawn carriage was seen to apparently destroy a lich gate. The scene became one of the few Doctor Who outtakes to actually be broadcast, and was also seen internally on BBC safety videos as an example of how not to film scenes involving animals.
Yeah, not the faintest hint of recollection on my part.
Well, you know who does have the faintest recollection is Clement, because he's like, hey, those are some of the kids from back in the day. And Jack's like, you're right, those are the kids. They look like they haven't aged at all. The 456 specimen reveals to the poor sap who got sent into the tank, basically that they've been there before, basically stating that's why they have kids. And the U.S. general basically tells Prime Minister Green that the UN will decide his fate for hiding this information.
Which doesn't happen in this episode, at least. And probably won't happen in the next one either.
Basically, the 456 at this point makes a request for 10% of all of humanity's children.
Right, which they did. That was sort of the cliffhanger of the last episode, but they re-request it. They make their request known again, and they go into this meeting, I guess, of what to do about that.
Basically, the Prime Minister comes up with... So this was really interesting, and I'm curious to hear if your interpretation of what happened here is the same as mine. But the Prime Minister asks Frobisher basically to bump up the 45 failed asylum seekers, because they're going to use kids who were seeking asylum but they rejected, to give to the alien.
Right, because, sorry to interject, but we should first also explain that their initial plan is to just give a handful of kids, or I forget how much it was, but it was it wasn't the 10% that they asked for. They're like, we can't do that. So they start this planning meeting around the idea that they're not going to give the 10%. Yeah,
they are going to give 45, but then Green asks Frobisher to see if he can find 60 kids, and he says sure. And then what happens is Frobisher calls his wife, tells her not to worry, that everything's going to be okay. And then when he talks with the 456, he says he's got 62 kids to give to the alien. Now, I interpreted that to mean that he was considering giving his kids to the 456 because he has 2 daughters. But I don't know if that's how it was supposed to be interpreted, or...
I didn't even pick up on that. So, I mean, based on what you're saying, that's... What else could it be, you know?
Huh, yeah. I mean, I just found it weird because the Prime Minister made a point of it being the number 60, and then when Frobisher talks with the 456, he says 62, right after calling his wife to tell her that they're safe and that the security guard should be there.
Yeah, I mean, that is weird because he does. He calls his wife, or actually, no, I'm confusing that with later on when it's Ianta who's like, "Don't let the kids out of your sight." Yeah, I mean, what else could that be? Like, maybe that's what sets Frobisher apart from the rest of the people on the meeting, because later on when they're having the other meeting later, they're like, so are we all in agreement that like everyone here should be safe and everyone here should not have their family sacrificed? And they're like, yeah, of course. And Frobisher, I guess, is obviously not a good dude, but like he was willing to perhaps put his kids in that lot, which is it's a pretty bad look for him when it's like, because at this point in the plan they're choosing the kids, like they're handpicking the kids, and he decides to put his own 2 kids in that pile. It would be one thing, I guess, if it like random and he was like, yes, I'm willing to have my kids randomly entered into this, but it's like they're handpicking them, so.
Yeah. Predictably, the 456 rejects this. And then all the kids in the world start saying numbers.
Right, they have them sort of call out the 10% of the population of children in each country.
Yeah, so in the UK it was 325000. They say the digits individually, 325000. I think the French ones are saying 466000.
Yeah, wow, that was kind of a wow moment for me, is that like there's only about 3 million kids in the UK.
Yeah.
Now that we bring it up, I don't even know what the population of the UK is. I have no idea. I mean, I guess my guess would be like, I don't know, a little over 100 million or something like that. But maybe that's way off. I don't know.
That was a good guess, by which I mean that was a terrible guess, because I Googled it. 66.65 million as of 2019.
Oh, dang. Yeah.
It's the population of the UK.
Yeah, wow. It's incredibly low for maybe it's not, I don't know.
That's of 2019, so it would have been lower in 2009.
Yeah.
In 2009 it would be, there's a little chart here, 62 million. It's interesting in this episode they vastly misestimate the like population of the world in 2015. They say that the world population is going to be 9.5 billion in 2015, and we've only just passed 7.8 billion here in 2021.
Yeah, I mean that's okay, because it's like how it's done in the scene. It's to the same effect, where it's like it's what's his face, saying like, hey, like maybe we should reduce the population, like Arnie Nass style or whatever. Is that, now I have to find, hold on.
I'm holding on to my butts.
No, it's not I don't know. Shoot.
Don't ask me.
Oh, yeah.
You're the more well-read
yes,
one.
Yes, it is Arn. I'm probably pronouncing his name wrong, but it is Arn. Christ, what is Arnie? He's a Norwegian guy who's like an ecologist or something, and he's very famous for saying like we need to massively reduce the population of the planet, or else the world is done for. Yeah, he's not. He's like 100% right.
So anyway, the news stations haven't figured out these numbers yet. I think the American kids are saying like 1260000. And eventually they do figure out that it's 10% of all kids in each country. And the news station's like, why are they doing this? Meanwhile, at, I guess, the Parliament building, the Prime Minister's like, well, I guess it's worth considering.
Right. They go into this more heated discussion now, I guess. And I think at this point, Torchwood has already put their plan into motion. they have something up their sleeve, but we don't know what it is exactly yet.
Well, I know step one is Reese pulls a vanishing act for the rest of the episode because he's never seen again.
Yeah.
But like, you have to go. You're the most important part of this plan. You have to go do. You have to go do your part, and then he just vanishes, and we're like, ah.
Yeah, good riddance. Never liked the guy anyway.
Oof. Oof.
I'm semi-kidding.
Sad oof.
So they go into this more heated discussion, and the biggest proponent of like really getting down to business and really figuring out how to do this is we just said her name. What was it? Denise Riley. Denise. Yeah. She just goes like, "Look, we need to hone in on the kids who don't have a great future ahead of them and are going to contribute not very much to society, and those are the kids we need to sacrifice."
Yeah, because they had been considering, I think Prime Minister Green suggested actually a completely emotionless, completely random method. And someone's like, well, how are we going to prove it's random? And he's like, well, we can't, but at least our consciences will be clear, basically, is his argument. Because we won't be like selecting people. And that's when Denise is like, well, I'm not putting my kids up. And she's like, and who should get to vote? Should be people with the kids on this table who get to vote, or the people without kids who have no stake in this? So then the Prime Minister says, all right, we'll make it completely random, but we won't use any of the kids at this table. And then she says, but what about my nieces and nephews? And he's like, don't push your luck. And I'm like, yeah, that, like, really? Really?
Yeah, I mean, you just got to look out for yourself, I guess.
I guess. And then, yeah, she just makes this completely, like, freaking Adolf Hitler eugenics argument that's like, well, we should just kill the like, least contributing members of society.
Well, what she's really talking about here, I guess, is, like, how class mobility is, like, kind of a myth, you know? Is, like, and, I mean, she's really just talking about, like, how, I guess, feudalism or something close to it is still around in present day, you know, because she's, you know, she sort of says that, like, you know, the people who don't contribute a lot as kids are going to continue down that path or that trend or whatever as adults type of thing. Kind of like the idea that, like, you know, even though according to, you know, I don't know what you would call it, not common knowledge, but like according to, you know, what you're told is like, you know, you can start at the top and lose everything, or you can, you know, start at the bottom of society and work your way up, but that's usually not true. Pretty much just be economically wherever your parents were and wherever their parents were, and, you know, for the most part.
I don't know if she's making that complex of an argument. Because I think she doesn't point to any of those kind of things like Klaus. She points to, like, we should look at the people who we think are going to become criminals and kill them, basically. She basically says explicitly, like, we should take the lowest 10%, the ones who will probably be criminals or stuck in the penal system and won't contribute to society, and throw them away. And that's, like, I think that that's problematic, because that's basically saying that, like, the only people who are going to end up as part of the criminal justice system or, like, having to deal with that are the people who are lower class, basically just pigeonholing them in this nature versus nurture argument that they're the worst people in society, is the ones who just start off with a bad hand. They're the ones who are going to, like, they're the ones who suck.
Yeah, I mean, it's already...
I don't think it's an argument of, like, they're not necessarily going to become doctors. I think her argument is literally, we think they'll go to prison, therefore we should kill them. I don't think it's like, we don't think they'll be
defined.
Doctors. Yeah. Which, just yikes. Just the whole thing is just yikes.
Well, I mean, I mean, what she's saying is pretty much true, you know, like, certain people, no matter what you do, are not going to have, like, the hand. I mean, yeah, it's exactly what you said a minute or two ago. Like, the hand you're dealt at the beginning is the one you pretty much keep for your entire life, you know?
Yeah, but also, like,
Yeah, making this...
She's talking about determining that from kids' scores in schools.
Yeah, and she has...
Which is not correlated with that at all. It's heavily correlated with who's your teacher, which is then correlated with, like, where you live and your current socioeconomic situation. But I think it's been pretty clearly shown that, like, it pretty much just comes down to who's your teacher and not, like, necessarily what you start with for your kids' grades, which is what she wants to use to determine this.
Yeah, well, she does. I mean, let's just... I forget what exactly the line is, but she has that, like, striking line. She's like, if we're not willing to, you know, go through with what I'm saying, then why the heck do we, you know, have the national scoring system or whatever it is, which I guess is a thing in the UK. There's nothing really like that here, I don't think.
Well, I guess we have, like, the SAT and the ACT.
Yeah, those are optional, though, and so, like, I don't know. What she said made, like...
Don't kid yourself, optional. If you want to go to higher education, they're required.
Yeah, but they're being phased out. A lot of schools are no tests now, but, like... Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are not going to higher education, so don't take them. But, like, yeah, I mean, what she says is, like, you know, why are we scoring people, and why are we kind of siloing people into having, you know, lives defined by these scores and stuff like that.
Yeah, you know, I think she just stumbles upon the accidentally correct question, which is like, why are we doing this? But she's using that as, like, justification for her completely batshit insane argument. Whereas, like, the question really is like, well, why are we doing this? Like, what is the point?
Yeah, I guess.
But they basically... Everyone around the table is just kind of, like...
Huh.
I think uncomfortable at how, like, vehemently she's pitching this idea. Everyone's like...
Almost as if she had this, like, in her pocket ready to go, just in case, like, a situation arose.
She's been thinking about this when she lies in bed at night. She's like, God damn, I just really hate the lower class. Like, how can we just, like, get rid of them? Like, God damn, I really hate them. Like, instead of giving them a leg up in society, what if I just got rid of them?
Well, no one has any objections, except Lois.
Yeah, because by this point, Gwen has contacted her and told her about the plan.
Yeah. And the whole entire plan would just be for nothing if Lois decided not to go through with it. But she does. She stands up and she's like... She kind of, you know, tells them at first that she has problems with what they're doing and that they're all awful people. And then they kind of just laugh and they're like, yeah, well, so what?
They kind of, like... I mean, they even talk about how to spin this as, like, an inoculation, and then they got double-crossed.
Yeah, Frobisher comes up with this plan of, like, all right, so here's what we do. We first... administer these false, what was it? Yeah, that's another thing that kind of rings a little odd or differently in 2020/2021, with, you know, the whole faction or whatever that says the COVID vaccine is, you know, whatever it is, many different, you know, ideas out there. But they're basically the idea that Frobisher comes up with is that they administer these false cures for the speaking in unison, take the kids that they need, and then when people realize the kids aren't coming back, they blame it on the 456.
Yeah, just say they were double-crossed, which, like, there are multiple problems with this plan, not the least of which is, like, if one single country in the world announces what they're doing, like, what they're actually doing, this whole thing falls apart. Because keep in mind, the entire world has to do this, not just the UK.
Yeah, and they only have a day to come up with the plan, so I guess they're just doing the best they can.
It's not good enough. The best they can is not good enough.
Yeah, as we're about to find out.
But, like, yeah, just everybody around the table talks about, like, oh yeah, that's, like, great, because then it looks like we got double crossed and not like we're unwilling participants is the phrase they use. And my note is just like unwilling participants, my backside, like unwilling, like y'all, like Denise seems mighty fine, like mighty all right with going through with this. She's like finally seeing her way of like implementing her like perfect genetic system or whatever. Because that's what it is too. Because they're using kids' scores, it's not necessarily a class-based thing. Like intelligence or your ability to retain information, let's say, not necessarily intelligence, but your ability to retain information, which is what school tests test, is somewhat genetically linked. So, like,
I mean, it's also just that, like, if you're, I don't know how it is in the UK, but I imagine it's very similar to how it is here. If you live in a like a low, socioeconomic status area, you probably have access to like schools that you won't do as, or like you don't have access to whatchamacallit, like you don't have the same access to education or the level of education.
You don't have equality of opportunity.
Yeah. So you're and since socioeconomic status is like pretty heavily linked to race, like yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Yeah. But anyway, Lois is just like, look, this plan is nonsense, and we're going to leak footage of this whole meeting to everyone in the world if you don't do what we say. Because, like, you guys have no control over this situation, which is true. They're willing to hand over 325,000 kids.
Yeah, we didn't even mention that the 456 threatened to kill everyone if they don't hand over the kids. We don't even know why they're doing this yet.
Yeah, they do ask them, like, Frobisher asks the 456, like, we have to know what you're going to use the kids for if we give them to you. And the 456 basically just say, like, they're not going to be harmed.
Yeah. What if it's all just a big prank at the end? They hand over the kids and they're like, yeah, we were just kidding. And they leave.
We just wanted to see if you would do it. It's like
that South Park episode. There's a episode of South Park where they're making those like those wooden race cars that you make in Boy Scouts, and one of them achieves like faster than light speed. So aliens come to Earth and they're like, so you guys are now in like the league of planets that have achieved faster than light travel. And they give them like some alien currency, and it starts like this war. And they're like, yeah, that currency was just a test to see if you're ready, and you're not. So bye. All done in like 22 minutes runtime, by the way, like every South Park episode is.
Shoot, I was reading a story or like watched something the other day that was like the plot was kind of similar, where like aliens showed up to humans, and then like the instant the humans join the Galactic Federation, just everything goes to crap and everyone starts fighting everyone else, because like apparently humans are the only ones like in the universe who like go to war with themselves. Jeez. I mean, there is like there is kind of an element now of like, we wanted to see what you would do, because Jack and Ianto go to Tem's house and they confront the 456, and shout out to the scientist who's there, who's just like, I'm just here to do just do my job. Because they're like, can you like get this transmitted on this signal? He's like, yeah,
this is the guy who was in charge of building the enclosed environment for the 456.
And they basically are like, we want a war, and the 456 are like, all right, we locked all the doors of the building and released a virus that'll kill all of you.
And Jack, as soon as Ianto starts suffering the effects, Jack is like, I was just kidding. Take it back.
You gotta take that back.
People are running through the halls, just dropping like flies.
Well, we see a shot of them like banging on the door trying to get out with a fire axe, but apparently the building is designed to shut down in the event of a biological or chemical
Right.
attack.
While all this is going on, Johnson and her team have confronted Gwen, and they are now shown the recordings and kind of get that they're working for this government that doesn't really have anyone's best interest in mind.
The 456. Basically like the ambassadors of death is what I'm seeing here, because they apparently have like unmitigated control over Thames House's systems for some reason. Also, this is a damn fast-acting virus.
Yeah.
Just gonna
Yeah.
throw that out there.
Their threat to like kill everyone could just be a bluff. Like, maybe they don't have that ability.
Just a prank, like the 456 get wiped out, and the last of their species just like, it was just a prank, bro. We don't have the ability to kill all of you. Like,
Could be.
we were just posturing.
Ianto dies.
Oh yeah, he's
Yeah.
dead. He has a touching moment with Jack.
What was that? Was that just a death throw? Like, or like,
Yeah. He dies in Jack's arms. According to Gareth David Lloyd and the Amazon X-Ray Fun Fact of the Week, which has been shown to be false in the past. According to Gareth David Lloyd, the original version of the script had Jack reiterate and return Ianto's profession of love. That got cut from the final script, though.
huh?
So instead, it's just Ianto saying, I love you. And Jack saying, don't do this to me, don't leave.
But he does.
He did.
I guess when I spoiled that Ianto died, I just assumed. I can't remember if I said this at the beginning of the episode, but I just assumed that he would die at the very end.
Me too. I also assumed he would get shot. I didn't realize he would die by a completely unseen, unseeable virus.
I'm sure you could see it under like a microscope or something. Yeah, what if
I meant like on camera for us, the audience.
Look, I'm sure if you put your monitor or your laptop or whatever you watch this on under a microscope,
I don't know about that one, actually. I don't
you
know
would
about
see
that one.
the virus.
I don't know about that one. I don't know if it would like be caught on camera.
No. Also, Clement dies. They like the 456 like disconnect him from their system or whatever, and he just like starts bleeding from his ears and dies.
Yeah, so his like interaction with them before made him some sort like connected somehow with the 456. He wonders in the middle of the episode why he was rejected, and Gwen surmises that he may have been slightly too old. Like they're asking specifically for prepubescent children, so maybe he was like had just started puberty, and that saved him.
Yeah, but we really don't know yet. Well, I say yet, but who knows if we're even going to find out.
What the kids are for?
Yeah, or why they rejected Clement or anything. I mean, there's only an hour left. How are they going to wrap all this up?
Very easily.
I mean, we know that like there's a Torchwood season 4, so like it doesn't just end here. It's not like everyone dies or something like that.
Just reset the universe. Just pull a Stephen Moffat and just reboot the universe. Big Bang. Where are you at?
The Big Bang 2.
Big Bang 2.5.
Well, that's how it ends. Gwen and Jack our scene, I guess, where you see them at the end, sort of next to Ianto's body, which is amidst the rest of the bodies of the people who died.
In the arms of an angel, fly away. The reason why Gwen is in this room actually is because they have Jack in a body bag. I guess presumably they don't know that Jack can come back.
And this time he surprisingly doesn't. He stays dead. No.
He just also dies with Ianto.
I mean, I guess we should give Ianto a retrospective. He's pretty much done.
Yeah, no, we will. Yeah, let's give him a retrospective. Ianto, I was a little harsh saying he's a nothing character, but I do think he is the weakest of the Torchwood regulars. Even from the beginning, he had very little character, and then as we started to get more of like Owen and Tosh, the question was like, well, we're gonna learn more about Ianto, and this season seemed to be where we were going with, we're gonna learn more about Ianto, and then we killed him.
Yeah, and I mean, I think over the course of series 1 and 2, he definitely fell into the more sort of everyman role as Gwen kind of stepped out of that, or every woman role, I guess, in her case. And yeah, I mean, he was not all that interesting. I thought there was going to be something very heroic that he would, like, I didn't think he was actually going to, I guess I did actually think that also, but I thought the reason why people kind of had this massive outcry about his death was that he was going to do something like really heroic. But he doesn't really.
Yeah, and I mean, the question at the end of the day, too, is like, why did he even need to go into Tim's house with Jack? Jack could have done it on his own. Presumably he went in there because he wanted to be with Jack when he confronted the 456, etc., etc., etc.
Yeah, and I mean, probably his relationship with Jack is one of his most memorable aspects. I don't know how common it was to depict, like, same-sex relationship in, like, 2009 on TV on a series that a lot of people watch, or the very mainstream series. But maybe, right. I imagine it wasn't. At least maybe not as much as it is now, which is still probably not that much. That's just a guess on my part, but I mean, that might be why he was such a beloved character.
Yeah.
And we did get more of him this season, though. Like, it wasn't as much, I guess, as we were both expecting, but we did get this sort of, he felt ostracized by his family, kind of, and, stuff like that. So it wasn't too much, but it was there.
It was there. Yeah, I mean, they could have done more with Ianto, but at the end of the day, I think he was all right. He was all right. I might miss his presence.
Because this is sort of one continuing story, I think we'll also have to see what happens next week. But, like, for Tosh, her death, like, so much of her character was formed in her death. That's something we talked about, I guess, at the end of series 2. So we'll have to see kind of if maybe the same thing is true of Ianto. It wasn't for Owen. Well, that's probably because Owen was such a larger-than-life, character. And it kind of worked also for Tosh because she was basically the opposite of that. And then, like, you could kind of see who she was, I guess, in her death, whereas for Owen, maybe it was the opposite. You could only see who he was in life. But we'll have to see, I guess, what happens with Ianto. Maybe his specter will, like, still haunt the show for weeks to come into series 4. Probably not, but, like, you never know. Maybe
yeah, I mean, his presence could definitely be felt after death, I suppose.
Maybe he'll be like series 2 Rose, where she's like still a character on the show, even though she's nowhere to be found.
Let her go, Russell T. I mean, I would prefer we don't end up with another, like, let him go, Russell T moment. I suppose the death of Ianto has an effect on Jack or effect on the show, I should say, because Jack is the main character of the show. And he obviously is in love with Ianto. So presumably this is going to affect Jack in some way, and through Jack it will continue to appear and affect the events of the show.
Yeah, and it's nice too, like, I guess, and this might touch back to some of the stuff that this series has to say about, like, children and legacies and stuff like that, is that Ianto's last words to Jack are like, he basically tells Jack to remember him forever. And Jack promises that, even after 1,000 years passes, he'll still remember Ianto. Which is like, because Ianto got into this relationship with Jack, and as we mentioned at the beginning of the season, was maybe thinking, this was never actually confirmed, so I guess it's also just sort of a theory, I guess, but like, Ianto was maybe thinking, because this was confirmed to be his, the first relationship that he was in with another man, so maybe he was thinking, like, if this thing happens, like, I won't have kids, stuff like that, but like, in his death, in having this relationship with this immortal dude, like, his legacy then will be passed on, even without kids or anything like that, because, Jack will remember him.
Right.
So that's kind of nice, I guess. And it's like, it's also completely antithetical to use that word again, or for the first time for me, we're just one entity now on the podcast. Anyway,
we're slowly merging into one super podcaster.
Jack and Ianto storm the building because they want to tell the 456 that they're not going to hand over one single child. They're going to safeguard the future of humanity by not giving away any children. And Ianto's request is in line with that. The government was willing to sacrifice its future, its children, but Jack makes sure that Ianto's legacy lives on. So sort of comparable there, I guess, to the legacy of the human race.
Right. We even completely forgot the scene where Ianto calls his sister and tells her, like, he loves her and to keep all the kids in sight and not to let anyone take any of them. So.
Yeah, overall, though, not my favorite character on the show, and not even really the most interesting one, so. Yeah.
Yeah, like I said at the beginning, I don't really understand the, like, fervor over Ianto's character. Possibly it's driven by Tumblr, which we all know how great Tumblr is, but possibly driven by Tumblr's obsession, which is the correct word, obsession, with the Jack-Ianto relationship, partially because it's a cis-normative relationship in, like you said, a quite mainstream television show.
Wasn't that Archive of Our Own, which had, like, a ton of Jack and Ianto content?
Yeah, but I think you're underestimating the effect of Tumblr on the outside world as well as on the people who write fan fictions, because Tumblr is the place that has threatened voice actors over their ships not working out. Tumblr is the place that has gotten shows cancelled. Tumblr is the reason we have bronies. Tumblr is basically the genesis of a large, substantial part of internet culture, especially in the aughts, when it was basically the only place that served as an anonymous gathering point for people on the internet. Now, obviously, we have Reddit and 4chan and Dig and so on. We had Dig and so on and so forth. But Tumblr was really the first. So.
Huh. Yeah, I've never really been on it.
Tumblr, which, like, still to this day causes problems because they shipped two characters in Supernatural, which was running at the same time, in another homosexual relationship, which the creators of the show vehemently tried not to make happen, and then there was a whole huge outcry over the final episode, which I'm not going to go into here because there are people who do it better than I do. And I'll just put a link in the show notes for people who
seem pretty invested.
Tumblr as an entity fascinates me because how can one website do so much damage to the human psyche?
I mean, that's pretty much all big websites that people use. Take your pick. Facebook,
True.
Twitter,
True.
the other ones that you named, Reddit, 4chan. So, I mean, I don't know.
True. But like I said, Tumblr was the first. Tumblr was really big in 2009 when this aired. So
was MySpace, the most innocuous and innocent, big site to ever exist. I think.
I think MySpace still exists.
It does. It's a music site now. Sort of like a rate my music style thing. I think. I'm not 100% on that.
Yeah, I think it's something for like musicians now.
I mean, other than that, I didn't really have much else, I guess. I'm really excited to see where this goes. I almost wanted to just watch the next episode right then and there. It was hard not to click, play next or whatever.
Yeah, I like had to scramble to stop it from auto playing, even though I wanted it. I wanted to watch the next episode, where it's all coming to a head now. The final hurrah of this Torchwood team next week, really. I mean, because season 4, presumably the Torchwood team will look pretty different. I mean, Gwen and Jack probably still going to be around, probably. But who else is going to be in the team? I don't know.
Lois and Reese, maybe, will be inaugurated.
I guess we'll see. I don't know. I mean, this is the last hurrah of this team, really.
Mm-hmm. I can't wait to watch the next one. Like, I have to know what happens next. Like, I know I don't sound very excited, but I am. Like, I just have to know what happens.
I guess you'll find out for next week.
I really hope that, like, the ending raises more questions than answers and doesn't answer any of the questions that these 4 episodes have posed. Like, I honestly just hope you never find out what the plan is, never find out what the 4, 5, 6 are, what they look like, or any of that.
Day 5 is actually like 6 months later, and it's just like, remember that 4, 5, 6 thing?
Remember
that was pretty weird, right?
Remember Yonto? Wait, who?
Yeah, who are you talking about?
I would actually like that. I mean, I would more than like that. I would love that.
I guess we'll see. I don't think they'll do that. I don't think they will, but they might.
No, I mean, the preview depicts something that picks up right after this one ends. But yeah, we'll have to see. I mean, we'll have to see. We still have some segments to go through, though.
Yeah.
And for once, Jack actually seems very distressed. Visibly.
He starts the episode in a distressed place over the events of 1965, which we weren't sure if they were going to affect Jack moving into this week or not. And he ends this week in an even worse place after the death of Ianto.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's more clear than we ever get, or we ever have gotten, I think.
I'm assuming it's going to continue into next week since this is a day-by-day thing, so I guess we're seeing more of the immediate effects of things that happened to Jack.
Mm-hmm. As for how the government screwed over Torchwood this week, well, surprise, it was actually Torchwood screwing over the government.
Yeah, surprise, boys. Torchwood blackmails the government using their recordings. They also try to blackmail the aliens, which the 456, which you kind of have to wonder, like, why do they care? And why would the 456 care? But
as for how many sins Gwen committed, 0, I think.
Yeah, I don't think she actually committed any.
Maybe a bit of pride, when Johnson locates her and Clement, and she's like, "Ha, yeah, maybe a bit."
Yeah, a little bit. That seems like a technicality, but
Yeah,
sure.
it's
We can
not
give it to her.
much. Yeah, I admit it's not much if it is there at all.
Weird. Weird.
I mean, it's not that weird. She wasn't like designed specifically as a character who to be like, a bad person or a sinner or anything like that. So
Yeah. Okay, fine. Ignore Ianto. Well, that was pretty difficult this week, and I guess this is when we sunset that segment because
no, we don't have to. I mean, we can continue to ignore him after his death.
In fact, you know what? You're right. We can ignore him so well, we'll never even mention this
Yeah.
segment again. And that's all the segments except for Britain's 10 actors, which I only looked up one, the ever effervescent, I don't know why that's the adjective I went for, Nicholas Briggs appearing for the first time in the Doctor Who universe on screen in an actual, like, physical acting role and not as the voice of some alien. So he appears as one of the people around the desk talking with the Prime Minister. He is probably best known for being the voice of the Daleks and the Cybermen in reboot Doctor Who or revival Doctor Who. He also voices the Daleks in basically every audio drama ever made. That is basically his thing. He also writes some of them. I think he's also executive producer of the audio drama range. He's also been in Inspector Lewis, The League of Gentlemen, and that's pretty much everything else he's been in is Doctor Who related.
Yeah, he's the guy who like suggests the population reduction thing, right? That's him.
I believe so. Yeah, he's the bald white guy, as opposed to the other bald people in the room.
Yeah, I just looked up his picture. That is him. I didn't know what he looked like. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't look up anyone as seems to be par for the course, but I am looking up someone right now as we speak. Deborah Findlay, who played Denise. She's been in quite a lot. She's been in 80 different roles according to IMDb. Started acting in the early 80s, or started being credited by IMDb in the early 80s. And yeah, she's been in a lot of good things. All Good Things. That's the name of a show, not me commenting on the quality of what she's been in. Anglo-Saxon Attitudes, Natural Lies, Downtown Lagos, Wives and Daughters, Casualty, hey, The Bill, Anna Karenina, the miniseries, Armstrong and Miller, and just looks like a bunch of other stuff. Law and Order UK. I'm just kind of going through here. Most recently in The Split and The Drowning. I don't know what either of those are.
Huh. Neat. I guess, yeah. I don't know what those are either.
And yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah, well, we got a couple emails to go over. We have one from Sergeant Drainer. Torchwood, Children of Earth, Day 4. Day 4, when the body count suddenly rises. The governments discuss the logistics of how many, quote, units, unquote, they can hand over while Torchwood finally catches a break. Jack and Ianto at last are able to confront the 456 directly to stand up to them, and at last the good guys get to take action. Except that they fail. I have to admit, when I first viewed the story, I wondered if the 456 were bluffing about their threats. I thought it might be something like the blood control from, quote, the Christmas invasion, unquote, but I was pleased it was no bluff. The 456 is a real threat with the power to follow through, and they do. Farewell, Ianto Jones. Jack will probably think he misses you for a while. Farewell, everyone else in the building. And farewell Clem, that was probably the biggest surprise to me, that this poor tortured boy who grew up into a poor tortured old man would ultimately die screaming in pain. That doesn't seem like the kind of thing that would happen on Doctor Who. On Doctor Who, you'd think this poor grown-up little boy would somehow find redemption, that he would end up being the key to defeating the enemy, and afterwards be recognized as a hero and maybe get to live out the rest of his life peacefully, or join the Doctor on some more adventures. But this isn't Doctor Who, this is Torchwood, so grown-up tortured little boys instead get to die screaming with blood pouring out of their eyes with no hope and no redemption. Nice. Maybe you guys should have another running segment. How would this have gone differently if it were Doctor Who? Speaking of little boys, how did you guys like the reveal from inside the tank that the kids really do seem to live forever and they even seem to have some awareness of what is happening to them? This show sure does like to tighten those thumb screws, crank that horribleness up to 11, but what on earth is the 456 actually doing with the children? Why do they want them? What purpose do they serve? Perhaps we will find out tomorrow. Warm regards, Sergeant Trainer, Station 7. The door. P.S. You yielded before and you will again.
Glad to see I'm not the only one who thought the 456 was bluffing, or were bluffing.
Well, evidently they were not bluffing, that is.
Yeah, and I mean, that is a great idea for a segment. I think most of our segments were suggested to us by listeners, so yeah, I mean, now that we're not doing the Ianto stuff anymore, or doing it, I guess like we said, so well, maybe we can kind of adopt that, I guess.
Yeah. Guess we can... I guess Sergeant Drainer's already done the segment for this week. But next week we can bring it in and see how the resolution of the story goes, and would it have been different if this were Doctor Who?
Yeah, I mean, it might be actually hard to do just thinking out loud, since this is a story that I don't think Doctor Who proper would like even tell in the first place. Like, it wouldn't even start Children of Earth, let alone finish it, you know?
That's true. It wouldn't, it wouldn't go this dark.
No.
But it also wouldn't analyze a lot of these themes.
No, or at least not in the same way. But, we'll have to see, I guess. So.
Yeah. No reason not to try. Can always cut it out in post if it doesn't work. And I have another email, this one from Steven. Day 4. Well, fellas, it finally happened. For weeks I've been hearing you guys say how Ianto is such a nothing character who can be ignored. You have even mistakenly said his name when referring to Owen's death. Are you happy now that you both got your wish and that you can now ignore him from here on out? Seriously, it was hard for me to not say something when hearing your remarks. Lol. Cheers, Steven. Yeah, I mean, I'm not dancing on his grave that he's dead. Like,
no, but
his presence will be missed. Probably.
Yeah, I'm just wondering how much Steven is like, how much we've, twisted that knife talking about his death. Wow. Well, we didn't have any comments on the social media accounts this week, so yeah.
Unfortunate. Well, I guess on that note, if anybody would like to email us, you can reach us at thedoctor@decadvegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters, your thoughts as we come to the conclusion of Children of Earth. You can find us on YouTube at Decadent Vegetable, and find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and anywhere you find your podcasts at Trust Your Doctor. Be sure to leave a rating if you like the show.
Check us out on Facebook, Trust Your Doctor. Like us on Facebook. Also check us out on Twitter at TYD Podcast, and follow us on Twitter. And next time we're going to be wrapping up Children of Earth with Day 5. But until then, the end.